What up, y'all? Sigma Programming back in the building. It's Super T Sigma. Good to see you guys again and speak with you guys again. I want to chop it up about the shadow realm and I want to connect it to the underworld, but not in the sense that we say underworld crime scene or underworld meaning black market, but underworld meaning the subconscious realm of shadow. And we're going to use some comparisons to earthly creatures that live beneath the surface of things and just connect a few dots. Just connect a few dots. Like, for instance, I was channeling and studying information, meditating and whatnot. And the Grand Canyon can be a version of the human heart. Because here you have it, this entrance into the earth, the deepest crater present on the earth's surface. And this has an entrance directly to beneath the surface. Now, beneath the surface is where speculation starts to happen. You have caves that are limited to their exploration, other caves that are totally cut off from civilization. You're forbidden to explore them. Right in the Grand Canyon, in the heart of America, the red brick, red for the heart. What did God talk about in the scriptures? Removing the heart of stone, replacing it with a heart of flesh. What you have at the Grand Canyon could be a heart of stone that's being transformed into a heart of flesh, but on a very real world events type of scale. If you're going according to Lovecraftian horror, then you're looking at things like the Vril Society, how they're using the power of a force called Vril to be geokinetic, psychokinetic, telekinetic, to control everything that is subservient to what is called dark matter, in which all of space exists, to be able to manipulate these things from beneath. You got movies like Jordan Peele's Us that shows everybody being colored in what? Red. Right underground. Doppelganger effect. But this is deeper than the idea of just doppelgangers, because we're talking about the whole underworld, how the shadow realm functions. So you do have this animalistic side of you that only feast on fertility. This is why the creatures, the people, the doppelgangers in the movie Us were eating raw rabbits. Because the root nature of ourselves, part of what's connected to survival, the feeding and the feasting and the fertility, I should say, go hand in hand. The same urge to reproduce is the same urge to eat. These things control the body in the same way. These urges drive the body in a similar way. So you get a movie like Us to point to how the shadow world functions, and you have similarities both above and below because we're one whole person. This is really the story of the Black Diamond. On the surface, you got the pyramid, who's the main characters, family clothed in white. Underneath, you got the family clothed in red, the bottom of the diamond, the left-hand path, dealing with the self, dealing with the shadow, dealing with your shade, dealing with your primal nature, getting to the bottom of your urges, dipping into your own personal sea of chaos is what it is, and sorting things out using elements. And these things that we call demons are just archetypes that represent these different elements in the shadows. So you have the same form of order above as you do below. And we really mean below. You don't have to believe in any of the places to get the meaning on how it talks about connecting the higher and the lower self together so that you can be recognized as the diamond that you are and not just the pyramid that you're displayed as. There's a whole nother subsurface to you with a whole nother world and a whole nother set of implications for you. They said there are real life physical underground tunnels that could support life, have ventilation and everything. These things could function like cities. So you have this dichotomy of the spiritual world breaking into the real world. Anyway, you got physical inventions that represent metaphysical realities. You have the reality of the doppelganger. You got the mirror, the liquid, the split screen of things functioning. So the shadow is just a reverse reflection of what's going on in the real world. The shadow is what you're looking back at when you're looking in the mirror. When you're looking in the mirror, that reflection is the shadow version of you. Left becomes right, right becomes left. You just functioning from a different part of the brain. Instead of functioning from the logic center, you're functioning from the urge and creativity center. You're seeing what controlled chaos looks like, but you can't have controlled control. The energy that powers your actions, your thoughts, and your deeds comes from chaos. Control itself is not a power. Control itself is a handler, a conduit of power. It's directed to the distribution of power. And understanding this is the main thing you need to have when you're navigating in the shadow world, the shadow realm, dealing with the shadow self. So you have these wild versions of ourselves that's deep in ourselves, where if these certain buttons are pushed, we become these savages. World events, certain terrors can bring the savage out of people if their crown is not protected. They can be attacked from all of the things that point to only the base nature, the below. Survive, 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 to the point where there's no concept of community, no concept of civility, to reduce man to the state of an animal again. Because this nature has not been pre-integrated in the individual's experience. If this goes wrong, remember, roles will be assigned to you. Just like they say, energy is neither created nor destroyed. They say it just changes form. Well, change is constant, and you could attribute vibrational energy to that, to the subsistence of that. You can say that all of these things are connected. So when your right is left and your left is right, you have to deal with yourself in a different way. You have to start looking sometimes at your emotions instead of your thoughts. Sometimes you got to look at these things differently, one thing at a time. Wrestle with the thoughts of the day first, and then wrestle with the things that's been affecting you for years in a separate time. Don't let these things share the same space all the time when you're trying to reconcile you. Unless you can connect some dots to your modern environment, unless you have an adept vision, an adept, where you can coordinate your everyday into the thread of your life. If you're really operating off of ninth dimensional string theory consciousness, then yeah, that's cool. Deal with the ball of yarn. That ball of yarn is untangled in what? The shade anyway. So maybe the globe, maybe the world itself is not a ball. Maybe it's not a globe. But maybe the system of the world is circular. Maybe the path of history is circular. And maybe these things are sitting on a square where you can only be balanced off of right angles only. Right angles only. Correct vantage points only. Right? The challenge really is for us to start looking at everything differently. We have to cloak everything in parable, everything in metaphor. Now, if you think that taking on such an approach is really too deep for you, then you're lost. Your crown is exactly where they want it to be. In a glass case somewhere. In near custody. So that's just all I wanted to build on for right now. And, you just take that how you want to take it. But really, there's a whole, funhouse effect when it comes to life. And every level of life is really connected. Like on the same day, for instance, you could be tired and groggy, but also on that day, it could be raining and no animals are out. And also on that same day, the stock market could fall. And on that same day, this and that could happen. A lot of things get lined up in your experiences. You want to look for what is called synthesis, the law of synthesis. This is part of the universal laws, which there are like a little over 100 of. The law of synthesis, being able to connect the dots. Even if you don't know where to start after the dots are connected, which is almost impossible, but even if for some reason you don't and there's some dots that's still unconnected, the sense of fulfillment that you will experience is actually going to heal your body. Nothing does the body better than fulfillment. When you know you're doing a right thing that you've been trying to uncover, discover, make room in your life to dive into, to tackle, to approach. And this thing is the big ticket item. Like saving up for the whole house, not just to get in and then be under the thumb of the bank. No, going and get a house for $750,000, but not going to see anybody until you got $750,000. You're gonna pay less with that kind of money up front. That's when deals happen. You're probably only gonna pay six something because you came with $750. But go ahead and jump in there for $750 with a mortgage that's $750,000, a house note that's $750,000, and see what happens. You're gonna be pushed into the shadows so fast, it'll make your head spin. You have homeowners that talk about house broke. House broke is a form of broke that people who rent in apartments, no matter how many eviction notice, they will never be able to understand those levels of debt unless they've been charging up cards and, you know, maybe they owe the schools everything or something like that, or some kind of medical bill. But these kind of expenses, what does that do? It puts you in the red. Now we're back to the subconscious layer again. It puts you right back in the basement again, right back in the lower half. If you're not in the black or in the green, you're in the what? You're in the red. You're in the red zone. You're being pushed back into the doppelganger. Survive, survive, survive. Before the bill collector calls. Survive, survive, survive. And it's funny, they got an acronym with job that's called just over broke. You won't be poor enough to protest, but the amount that you'll make based on what it takes to survive, you'll be alive just to work. The gears on that particular machine are held together so closely, the wheels are like almost the same size. Indiscernible how these particular cogs work between what they call, I guess, time and resources. Well, not time. I guess time's not even really being taken seriously, which is why hourly things change and things like salary is definitely freestyled. So time doesn't matter when it comes to money, I guess. And the work, I mean, that's how it appears. I mean, you ain't treating the clock good. You punching it, right? You punching it in and punching it out. You ain't tapping the clock. You ain't kissing the clock. You punching the clock. If you're not doing that, what you doing? You killing time. Can you really kill it? No, but look at the war that's surrounding the idea of time. It's so tricky. It's so tricky. My goodness. So to be able to uncover that is to be able to uncover the shadow. Because if you're going to be an illuminator down here, your purpose is not to go into a fully lit room. There's other people out in the world, in the deep stretches of the universe, in parallel realities. They need your light. And you got to go to those places. Especially if they're dark. Especially if they're dark. The shadow is inevitable. The sun sets every day.